They told me it was the easiest job in the world. Sit in a room, watch a few screens, and call if anything weird happened. No patrols, no co-workers, no risks. Just me, a chair, and a wall full of security camera monitors. But that was before the footage started glitching. Before I saw the man in the hallway, the one that wasn't supposed to exist. He didn't blink, he didn't move, he just stared. There were no doors in that hallway, no way in, no way out. And every night at 2:47 a.m., he'd appear, closer, closer, until I saw him standing behind me on the camera I was watching. But when I turned around, there was no one there, or so I thought. I lost my job in February, and by March I was desperate enough to take anything that paid. That's how I found Ridgewell Logistics. They had an ad posted online for a night shift position, overnight security monitoring. No prior experience. Needed $22 an hour. I thought it was too good to be true, but when I called, a man named Fred answered and told me the job was real. I just had to come in for a short training session, sign a few papers, and I'd be good to go. The warehouse was on the edge of Town Way, out in the industrial district, where no one really goes after dark. When I arrived, the parking lot was empty, and the building looked like it hadn't been updated since the 70s. The lights flickered inside, paint peeled off the walls. It smelled like mold and old metal, but none of that mattered to me. I needed the money. Fred met me at the door. He was tall, thin, and seemed too cheerful for someone working graveyard shifts. He walked me to a back room where a wall of screens showed different parts of the warehouse. Some angles were of long, empty hallways. Others showed stairwells, break rooms, or supply storage. "You'll be in here," he said, gesturing to the tiny office. "Shift starts at midnight, ends at 6 a.m. You sit, watch, and log anything weird. If something serious happens, like a breaking news, the radio, to call me. But honestly," he added with a laugh, "nothing ever happens here. It's boring as hell." The first week went exactly as he said. I'd bring snacks, sit in the dark little office, and scroll between the 8 cameras. I watched shadows move as the HVAC turned on and off. Occasionally, I'd spot a rat run across the floor. Nothing noteworthy. I started bringing books to pass the time, even dozed off a few times without consequence. Fred never checked in. The building stayed quiet. I figured I had found the easiest job in the world. But on my 10th night, something changed. It was 2:47 a.m., and I remember it clearly because I had just logged the time in my nightly logbook. I looked up at camera 6, long hallway in the eastern wing of the warehouse, a place I'd never seen anyone enter or exit. It was always empty, but that night, someone was standing there. He was wearing a grey hoodie, facing away from the camera. I leaned closer to the screen, unsure of what I was looking at. There was no movement, no swaying. The image almost looked frozen, but the time stamp was running like normal. I blinked hard and stared again. The man hadn't moved a muscle. His arms hung limp at his sides, head slightly tilted down. He looked wrong, off, unnatural. I reached for the radio to call Fred, but something made me hesitate. I watched the camera for another full minute. Still, he didn't move. Then, the time stamp froze. The feed started glitching. Small at first, just a flicker of static. Then the entire screen shuddered, as if the camera had been physically bumped. But the other cameras were fine. I switched to camera 5, then back to 6. The man was gone. I leaned back in my chair, heartbeat steady but elevated. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe someone broke in and left. Either way, I didn't report it. I didn't want Fred thinking I was jumping at shadows. The next night, it happened again. 2:47 a.m. I watched camera 6. The hallway was empty. I waited, counted seconds. Then, like a scene skipping ahead in a movie, the man was there. This time, he was closer to the camera, maybe 15 feet away, still unmoving, still facing away. I noticed something else too. The hallway lights were off, but his figure was oddly illuminated, like light was bending toward him, or he was glowing slightly. I stared at the screen, frozen. Suddenly, the radio crackled, but no one spoke. Just white noise, like a whispering wind. I leaned forward to adjust the dial and noticed something on the screen. The man had turned. He was facing the camera now. I gasped. Not because he moved, but because of his face. There wasn't one where his features should have been, was just a smooth, pale surface. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Like a plastic mannequin left to melt in the sun. My mouth went dry. My fingers trembled on the desk. I quickly shut the monitor off, but the static didn't stop. The radio continued to hiss softly. I unplugged it. The rest of the night, I kept the monitors off. The next day, I returned with my mind made up. I was going to quit. Tell Fred the job wasn't for me. But when I got to the warehouse, the door was locked. No lights on inside. I waited for 30 minutes. Then called the number I had saved for Fred.disconnected. That night, I stayed home. I was awoken at 2:47 a.m. by the sound of static. My bedroom TV unplugged and Dusty had turned itself on. White noise filled the room. I stood frozen in the dark, staring at the flickering screen. Then I saw it. Camera 6. Streaming on my TV screen, and in the center of that hallway, once again, the man stood. He turned slowly, deliberately, like he knew I was watching, and then he started walking toward the camera. Closer, closer, each step echoing somehow through the speakers, like wet footsteps on cold concrete. His face was still blank, his arms stiff at his sides. I reached for the remote. It wouldn't work. I yanked the TV's power cord from the wall. Silence. Then behind me, a whisper. Do not look away. I turned, nothing but. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I packed my things and left town. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't leave a note. I drove 8 hours and rented a cheap room in a city I'd never visited before. But the static followed me every night. At 2:47, my phone glitches. My laptop screen flickers. Sometimes I hear footsteps in the hallway outside my motel door. And sometimes, the screen flashes camera 6 again. I don't think this is about the warehouse anymore. I think it's about me, and I think he's getting closer.